Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back, and in this video we're going to be going through a new series where we're going to be creating a top-down 2.5D shooter so the concept here is, so what you'll see on the screen right now is we're going to be creating some sort of game where you're going to play as a chef in a nightmare, and there's going to be a bunch of possessed food, vegetables, things like that are chasing you. And this is basically a project where I was testing a while back, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a series, and I'll update the assets as we go along. So these are, finished assets, but it gives you a good idea of what we might be creating in the future, where we're going to have pickups, we're going to have the top-down, obviously the player, we're going to have the wave system, we're going to have upgrades, power-ups, leveling up, all the good stuff that you'd expect to see in this sort of game. And so yeah, I hope you enjoy, and in this one we're going to be going through things like just setting up the fundamentals, getting the player added, the camera angle set up, things like that. So anyways, let's get to it guys. So to get started, what we're going to do is, let's create a new project, and we can just call this top-down shooter, or we'll call it whatever you'd like. We can keep everything else the same for now, and let's just hit create. So we're going to start off with everything we need. So to start off with, we're just going to get the project set up. So we're going to, straight away, let's just add 2 layers. We're going to need 3 layers. And so we're going to rename this one, we'll call this UI, so this is where eventually we're going to be creating, the health bar, things like that. Let's rename this one, and we'll just call this one game. And then we'll add another one, where we will call this one, so you can just call this one like background or environment. So we'll call this environment. And then, so next thing what we need to do is, we need to actually add a few things to get started. So we need to insert a new object. So if you right click, insert a new object, and we need a 3D camera, because obviously this is going to be a 3D game because we're going to be looking top down. And then on top of this we need to add a 3D shape. So hit that and click. As you can see, it'll add some dice kind of textures here. And so what we'll do is, we're going to rename this 3D shape. This is going to be your player character, so this right here is going to be your actual character. So we can just rename this to player, or you can call it player billboard. And so basically what a billboard is where you use a 3D shape, and then we're going to be using that as a way to render 2D images. So we're using this, so then with this front face here, if you scroll down with the four sided dice, basically what we're going to do is, if you could scroll down, you can turn all these faces off. And so all we want is, we just want the bottom face to be showing. And so just from that you can see how that would maybe work, where that's going to be the player sprites. So just like that, you've already got your player character right there. And then next what we want to do is, so we also now want to create a new object. And this one we just want a regular sprite. For now we can just give this a random colour, we'll give it a green colour, like so. And then we want to make sure these are similar in size, so let's make, for now we won't change these values, as we're going through, because I'm still just going to try and get this sorted first, and then once it's all set up, I'll start tweaking things later. So this one here, we'll make it 64 by 64, and then we can call this one player collision. And basically what we're going to do is, we're going to be attaching these together. So this is basically, so this here is your visual, and then this player collision here is your actual logic, and we're going to keep these separate and just connect them together. So anyways, so we're going to set this size here, so we want to make this 128 by 64, so it's just a little wider. Alright guys, so once you've got that, next thing you need to do is, we're going to just click and drag, and you need to select both of these objects at once. We're going to right click, and if you can see here, we see something called hierarchy, and we're going to just click add selection to this instance. Okay, great, and so once you've done that, now if you just drag out, you can see this working, where these are now connected. So once you've done that, the next thing we need to do is, we need to just head back over to the layers, and now, because now that we've got a 3D camera and a 3D shape, we've got some new features, so it's already set up here for us actually. So what we can do is, so on the UI, we need to now change this from 3D to 2D, because obviously that's the UI, so we want that just to be 2D on the screen and not moving, right? And then we're going to set the parallax in it to 0 by 0, and once again all this does is, this just makes it so that when we're moving around the screen, that's going to stay in place. For the game, we can keep this as 3D, but however, we want to change this one to camera distance. And then for the actual environment, this is fine as it is, 3D and Z order. So this one's going to be based on a layering system. So for the environment pieces, you know, they will be visible based on how far away they are. Whereas the actual game, we want that to be relative to actual, you know, how far away the camera is. Another thing we can just add real quick for now is so we can just insert a new sprite. And we'll just give this a random floor color. I'll make it like green for grass. We can drag this out. And then we can just call this like floor or background, whatever you'd like. And then so this one we want to make sure we put this one on the environment layer. Double check that both of these your player and the player collision are on the game layer. I'm gonna lock the environment layer, and then so for the player billboard, just for now, I'm gonna select the 4-sided dice. And for now we can just give it a really basic kind of like just a player face or something, just to make it a bit better. Alright guys, so as you can see, I've just uploaded this absolute masterpiece. Obviously this is not going to be permanent. You can use whatever character you'd like. In the future, I'm probably going to create an actual asset pack which you'll be able to download for this series. I might get to that in the next couple of days, and then you know, we'll go from there. Okay, so one more thing we just need to do, guys, is just head over to, if you click your actual project folder at the top there, and then just head over to full screen mode, and we just want to set that to scale outer. All that does is that's just going to make it so if you've got different screen sizes, or if you put it on mobile, for example, it's just going to make it so that it's going to show more of the environment as opposed to less. This is so scale inner and outer are perfect for like mobile games or just in general. They're usually the more go-to option. And then one other thing is, so for the sampling, so if you're going to use pixel art or even in general, it can look a lot more crisp. Is nearest usually looks better. Like as you can see there, if it was pixel art, you can see here it's sharper. And if we change these, it adds more of a blurred effect. So if you're going to be using much larger file sizes or vector art and things like that, bilinear could work better. But sometimes I've found that even still, nearest can look cleaner. So that's all. Alright guys, so once you've done everything, we can now head over to your event sheet. And we can get started working on the camera and things like that. So what we'll do is, we're going to right click, add an event. And we're going to say system. We're going to say on start of layout. So let's add an action. And then we're going to select the 3D camera. And we just want to set look at position. So this here is what we're going to be using to actually set the position of the camera. And then here with these ones, we'll also make it look at the player. So that's all we're doing here. So anyways, for the X and Y, what we want to do is we want to say, so we're going to set that to the player collision, not the billboard. Because as you see, because as previously, the billboard is now attached to collision. So from the future now, when we're going to be using the event sheets, we're actually going to be focused on the collision for the logic. And then the billboard is just purely visuals. So we're going to say player collision dot X, like this. And then for the Y, we want to be setting that to player collision dot Y. And then on top of this, so what we want to do is, so we want to add the plus sign, and then we want to set it to something like a. I'm gonna do 256 for now. We might change this. Basically, what that's going to do is, so with the Y, you know, plus means down and minus means up, basically. So this is just going to push the camera down, so that because if we left it on Y, it would just be directly on top of the player, so you wouldn't see the front of the face. Whereas by pulling it down, you're then going to see the camera, right? I mean, you're going to see the player. For the Z, like I just made sure this is the height. So this is how high up the camera is. So we'll set that to something like 64. And then for the lookup, once again, so we want to set this basically the same as the actual position for now. So X and Y. And then for Z, this is like the position where we're looking at on the height. So for now, we could just set that to maybe like 8 or 10. We'll set it for 8 for now, and then we'll see how that goes. The rest, let's leave that for now, and we can test this and come back to it. So next for the camera, what we need to do is, so this will set the position at first, but then we also want to make it so that it's constantly updating and following the player. So we're going to add another event, system, and then we want to say every tick. For this example, this makes sense, but maybe like, you know, in terms of optimizing, you could set that to maybe like every second instead, something like that. But anyways, we can basically, for now, what we can do is we can duplicate this in here. However, we're going to be making some changes in here now, because we want the camera to be nice and smooth. We don't want it to be jittery and following it, you know, too precise, because it's just not going to look smooth at all. Alright guys, so real quick, so what I've done is, for the every tick, so I pasted this in here, and then now I've made some changes, so I'm just going to go through this now. So you could pause the video here and just copy and paste this, right? basically what we're doing is we're implementing a lerp, and what we're doing is we're doing this so it adds more of a gradual movement, so it's not snapping on the character instantly. So it's adding more of a curve, and then this here. So this means delta time, and what we're doing is we're basically adding a slight delay, right? So that it's just more smoothly catching up to the player instead of snapping onto it. So we're going to set that to lerp. So we're setting the camera to the player's X and the camera Y to the player's Y. But we're adding this condition here where we're adding the delay. So just pause the video here, and then you can just copy that. Everything else is kept the same. It's just the X and the Y we're changing, and then hit OK. Another thing is I also just changed the image for the player because obviously it looked ridiculous and yeah, it felt weird. So we can preview the project. And as you can see, we've now got a nice camera angle. So just like that, you can already see where this could go. So just from the background. So the reason why I did that is so you could also then see how it's now changed the angle to be a top-down game, right? Alright, great. So I'll leave it here for this first episode, guys. We've got the character ready to go, and we've set the angle, and the project's all good to go. So in the next one, we'll be going through actually getting this working. You know, we'll be setting the character up, adding the variables, the movement, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.